Hey, got no sound because I didn't have the mic on yet. I wanted to give people a few minutes to join. Oh, you know what? I could do a video. Yeah, throw on video. Hey everybody. So, for people just chiming in, if you didn't read the description, I have a lot of followers that normal subs who are used to seeing me do crypto stuff. I'm not doing charts and crypto analysis here. For those who aren't aware, on Twitter, I did a lot of content on popular case, Kyle Rittenhouse case. That work inevitably made it directly to the defense, and I was able to contribute to saving an innocent kid's life, which was awesome. So I gained a bunch of new followers on Twitter, and I figured it would be good to share my thoughts on other topics. If people like it, I'll keep doing it, and if you guys don't, tell me to shut the fuck up. I will do just that, and you won't hear from me again. But everybody else does it, and a lot of the people out there who have shows and stuff, people who do, the Tim Pools and everybody who discuss pop culture, politics, things like that. Some of them are great. A lot of them don't really give you much information. They pretty much just read stories. They're not really sharing their thoughts or analysis. So I thought it would be worth it to try taking a crack at it myself. And people, if you like my analysis and like my thoughts, I'll keep doing it. And like I said, if not, whatever. I gave it a shot. Figured I would try it once, see how it goes. And if people want to watch it back, you can watch back the live stream later. If people aren't watching it live, there's not a lot of people here live now, which is fine. People could always watch it back later. But I'll jump right into it. I asked on Twitter if there was anything you guys would like for me to discuss. I got a couple responses we could discuss really quick, and then we could just run through some of the stories in the news and talk about those. So I can mention some of the stuff people responded on my Twitter with, some questions they had. If anybody has any questions for me, you drop it in the chat. I'll take additional questions. I probably only have 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I'll see how much time I have. Depends when the wife yells down to me and says she needs help. We have 3 little kids. I have 3 toddlers, 3 under 3. Well, my twins just turned 3. And then I have a new baby who's just over a year old. So we have our hands full, as you can imagine. That's why when I'm doing all this work, I'm neglecting my normal jobs, my crypto trading and my group and my IT consulting. All that stuff I just ignored for 2 weeks, and I was focused solely on the Rittenhouse case. That's why when I posted on Twitter, hey guys, if you liked my work on the Rittenhouse case, please contribute. I gave my PayPal, Venmo. I put it all in the description for this video if you guys want to throw me some assistance. But the reason I did that is because 3 little kids, is expensive. And not working and just sort of neglecting all my normal work to focus just on that was a real big punch in the gut for me. Whatever. The defense actually would have probably hired me to consult, but luckily Kyle got off and we don't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, when she calls down and says she needs help, I'll probably have to run and do that. Let me see, what were the replies to this? All right, Bevo Fox. You guys should all follow Bevo Fox. He put together really great videos. He essentially used my analysis and that of others, John Curtis, another guy, and compiled really detailed videos. It's awesome. So you guys should really follow him. That's Bevo Fox, him right here. He also did one recently with the Waukesha. I gotta ask my boy Zero Sum how it's pronounced. But the terrorist attack with the car, he did an analysis of that, a couple of them. Really, really great work. So make sure you follow him. But he had asked something about people say they're about. So he had asked about the forward assist on the AR. So Kyle came out, right? Kyle Rittenhouse explained on the video what you actually see him doing. He is... Actually, let me ask really quick. Video works. Audio quality is good, right? Just let me know in the chat. I didn't ask because I have sort of adjusted my setup. I have my mic here, but I wanted to make sure audio levels were good. So, all right, sweet. You guys are a little behind. It's a 20-second delay. So he had asked about the forward assist. So Kyle explained when Gage Grosskreutz was on the stand and he claimed that Kyle had re-racked his gun. It would be charging. It's a charging handle. He also referred to the slide being on the top, which makes no sense. Here, this is my A2. So this is essentially an original Colt A2. Let me actually do this so I can see. All right, so this is the charging handle. You pull back on the charging handle. It's a substantial movement. So you would obviously notice that, right? Here's your ejection port. This ejection port right here, you can see the bolt inside, right? So if I do this, you can see this is pulling back the bolt right here. This is the bolt carrier group. So what happens is this has to jam forward to push around into the chamber. If that gets hung up, say right here, not quite closed all the way, just a little bit, that's what Kyle said. He looked at his ejection port. He saw that his bolt hadn't completely closed, right? It didn't move all the way up. There's a little button right here. So this button actually pushes it because there's little teeth on the bolt carrier group. And by pushing on this, it'll push these little teeth right here, and it'll force it close the rest of the way. So what he had said was that he realized the ejection port, when he looked at the ejection port, that the bolt was still back, so he used the forward assist to push it forward. That did save his life, and I'll explain why. So Bevo Fox on Twitter said, a lot of people say it's superfluous. It really is. So when you have a malfunction on an AR, you just pull the charging handle all the way back. If you have a bad round, so say you have a misfire, right? The round is bad, the primer gets hit, but it doesn't go off. I think the kid's falling down the stairs. Hold on. Okay, she didn't fall down the stairs. She was at the top of the stairs. So, what would happen is when you pull the trigger, and the bolt goes forward, right, and the hammer releases. So, if you were to pull the trigger, if he pulled the trigger at that point, the hammer releases. And then the only way to reset that hammer is to fully pull back the charging handle. So, if he didn't notice that it was closed, that's one thing that could have happened, depending on if it was closed enough. If he pulled the trigger and the hammer went, he would have had to completely pull the charging handle all the way back to reset it, to reset the action, to be able to fire again. And that additional time could have been life or death, because Gage Grosskreutz had a gun literally pointed at his head when he fired. So usually, the forward assist is superfluous. Normally, pull the charging handle. If there's a bad round in there that didn't go off, if there's a dud, essentially, it would eject that and load a new round. Or if there was a failure to feed and there's a round that started to feed but it didn't finish, by pulling back the charging handle and cycling the action, you'll eject whatever the problem is or force a new round into the chamber. So that would have taken additional time. I showed you. You have to pull all the way back on the charging handle. By using the forward assist, he actually did it much quicker, and normally I would say it is just superfluous. Ask anybody who's in the military. I'm not. I haven't served, thanks to those who have and do. But they'll tell you that it is superfluous. Normally, you don't care about the forward assist. If there's a malfunction, you immediately pull the charging handle. Because what happens if there's a malfunction and you hit the forward assist and it doesn't solve it? Because it's not actually the bolt not moving forward all the way. It could be something else causing it. There might be two rounds. There might be a double feed. If that were to happen, the bolt won't close, hitting the forward assist won't help, and you just wasted 5 seconds when you could have cleared whatever it is by pulling the charging handle a couple times, if necessary. So that's why it is superfluous, and it's not that useful. A lot of people say they shouldn't even really include it on the rifle anymore, but it's part of the design. It's always been part of the design, so I expect it's always going to stay there. Some people might make it without it, but so that's what it is. That's my explanation as to the forward assist, what it is, how it works, and how it actually helped him out. Now, Gage claimed that he pulled the trigger and there was a malfunction, so he had pulled the charging handle to reset the action. He referred to it as re-racking the slide, which is with a pistol. I could show you, but I'm sure you guys have seen in the movies. You pull back the slide on a pistol. He's obviously not experienced with weapons and rifles specifically, Gage. If he had indeed pulled the trigger, though, Kyle, he would have had to completely reset the action by pulling the charging handle, because the hammer would have moved forward, and in order to reset that, it has to come all the way back. So hopefully that explains that. Any other questions on that, let me know. my video is not mirrored. This is my left, where the mic is. Unless it doesn't show to you guys that way. But some people make models without a forward assist, but they pretty much all do. All right. What else? I don't really want to talk about LeBron or inflation. It's not a very good topic. Maybe why is Harris always wearing slacks rather than skirts? And why is she hurting her knees for? Oh no, maybe they took a beating getting to the top. You know, climbing that ladder can be brutal on your lower extremities. What other questions were there? Well, drop some questions in the chat too. So what other things were there? Oh yeah, so one of the other things I wanted to talk about is the Dominic Black case and the new case in Texas. Let me explain quickly for those who didn't see my posts on Dominic Black. Actually, I'll get to that after because the Texas case is more recent and there's a lot going on with that. So let me show you. I'll pull up one of the articles about it. If you guys haven't seen... Here. Well, here's this. So here's the Daily Mail article about it. So if you haven't seen my thread about it, I'll explain to you exactly what I explained on my thread. As a matter of fact, I could show you by showing on my thread. Where is it? Okay, so here. This is where I kind of broke it all down. I'll play that and actually let you hear it. And then for those people, it's only a minute and a half long. I'll let you hear my analysis, and then I can explain it in more detail. Yeah, let's do that. All right, one sec. So here's the guy in the green arguing with his ex. He's supposed to be picking up his son at 3:15. I'm going to do a much more detailed breakdown of this on YouTube, but at least for Twitter, let me explain my thoughts. I believe his ex's boyfriend goes in the house. I believe that's who he is. Comes back out with a carbine, and this is what happens next. Now, keep in mind, he's already told the guy on the green to leave the property.
You keep trying to keep my son from me. I'm fixing to drag you and Anne-Marie and everybody else into court. I'm subpoenaing your mom. I'm subpoenaing Anne-Marie. This is on video. I'm very leave. Do it. Right.
He's warning him and telling him to leave. The guy in the green says good, runs up on him, enters his front porch. Now, according to case law in virtually every state, and it's called curtilage, where it's considered your property. Your front porch is considered, for all intents and purposes, inside your home. For instance, it would be a Fourth Amendment violation if the cops were to search your property without a warrant, and that includes your front porch.
Never fucking use it, motherfucker! God damn it, I'll take it from you and fucking...
He approaches him, gets in his face. He is now being violent, and he is now threatening him by saying, you better use it or I'll take it from you and use it on you. That is a threat. At this point, he would be justified in shooting him, according to Texas law and the Castle Doctrine.
Call the police. Call 911. Call 911. Call 911.
The warning shot is justified because, again, he's already entered his property while threatening him.
Call 911.
All right, he grabs the rifle and he throws the man away. Now, he threw him 5 feet because he's a big boy. That man is now 5 feet away from his home, and the person who just encroached on his property and threatened his life is now standing between him and entry into his house. He is 100% justified in firing according to Texas state law, and actually according to many states, but I'll let my friend Andrew Bronco comment on that law of self-defense. He's an expert on the matter, but that's my initial thoughts. I'll explain more in my longer analysis on YouTube. Cool. All right. So that was my initial explanation. Hopefully you guys heard that. Again, this is the first time I'm doing this. I might have had my settings messed up to play the desktop audio back. But the original video, which I can play without any audio, let's do that. So you see them fighting. Now, this is obviously becoming a big story because we just had the Rittenhouse case, and self-defense is a big topic. Now, I just want to mention, I don't think he should have shot this guy. I think morally and ethically what he did is just wrong. I don't think it was necessary for him to fire and shoot him. I think he very easily could have brought that situation back down. But legally speaking, I believe he was fully within his rights to do so. So let me explain why. So you pull up. Let's do this. pull up the actual law so I can show you guys. Yeah, I posted it right. Here we go. All right, so here's the law. This is the Texas self-defense law, essentially, right? So this says a person is justified in using force against another when, to the degree the actor reasonably believes force is immediately necessary to protect the actor against the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force. I'm sorry I'm all stuffy, by the way. All the kids, everybody's got a cold. It happens when you have little ones, as a lot of you guys probably know. Hence the sniffles constantly. It's not from doing blow on Thanksgiving with the family, unfortunately. Joking. The actor's belief that force was immediately necessary as described in this subsection is presumed to be reasonable. And then it explains what would make your belief that such force is reasonable, what would make that reasonable, and explains a few things. Knew or had reason to believe the person against whom the force was used, A, unlawfully and with force entered or was attempting to enter unlawfully and with force the actor's house, car, place of work, right? That's an important one. Also, unlawfully and with force removed, was attempting to remove unlawfully and with force the actor from the actor's habitation, meaning somebody's trying to pull you out of your house, right? Or was attempting to commit aggravated kidnapping, murder, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, robbery, blah, 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 blah. So, both of these, A and B, are relevant, and I'll explain why. If he walks out of his house, so essentially he had told him to leave. Once you say leave my property, that person is obligated to leave your property. If they don't, they're trespassing, they're breaking the law. Going inside and getting a gun, it might have brought the temperature up, and it was probably unnecessary, which again, I'm critical of this guy, and I don't believe he should have done what he has done. I believe morally what he did is unacceptable. However, legally speaking, the debate started because the guy in the green shirt was yelling at his ex. He was supposed to pick up his son, and they have shared custody. And anytime you take a man's son from him, it's going to cause problems. And it just brought the temperature up. He was understandably upset. Like, if you took my son from me, I would lose my mind. So when you see him arguing with the wife here, they're arguing about that. I think it's her boyfriend, goes in and gets the rifle. It's a carbine. It looks like it's a 9mm carbine. So at this point, he's yelling, "Get out of here! Get off my property!" Right? He didn't come out and start shooting or anything like that. The guy in the green then runs up onto the porch and gets in his face. So that's aggressive. He's making physical contact to him. Right? He's running up and pushing up against him. He is, for all intents and purposes, he is attacking him. He's not actively using a weapon against him, but he's attacking him and he's threatening him. He says out loud, again, I can play it again if you need me to. He says, "You better use it, motherfucker, or I'll take it and I'll use it on you." So he is telling him, "I'm going to take that gun and kill you with it." Very similar to what happened with Kyle, where he was concerned that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take the gun and use it on him. And that was a very realistic and, unfortunately, the only way out of that situation was for him to use lethal force. So in this case, he's getting a similar threat. So at that point, he already would have been justified in shooting the guy in the green. That fulfills the subsection A, right? By running up onto his property and verbally threatening him and physically making contact with him, assaulting him, that makes it a justifiable shoot because the actor's habitation, his house, was invaded. That front porch is part of your house. And then B is the second part. He already would have been justified just from that first part. The second part, you actually see him. He grabs the rifle and he throws him away. So watch. This is where he grabbed the rifle and he threw him off of his porch, right? Grabs the rifle right there. He's holding the rifle, and he throws the guy several feet from his house. So now he's standing in his front yard looking at his house. This other guy is on his front porch, which again, legally, is the same as being in his house. And he's standing between him and his home. Could he flee and go into his house if he wanted to? No. The guy is standing between him and his own house. He couldn't get into his house and flee even if he wanted to do that. So he was justified in that respect. He was just removed from his house. Remember what section B said. Subsection B specified with force, removed or was attempting to remove unlawfully and with force the actor from the actor's house, habitation. By grabbing the rifle and pushing him and throwing him off of his front porch, he removed him from his own house. So, again, would have been justified in the first section when he ran up to him on the front porch, and he was further justified when he was thrown. Now, he was far enough away, there wasn't an immediate threat. I believe he could have said, hey, listen, let's tone this down. This is getting way out of hand. I don't want to shoot you. This is crazy. Everybody take it down a notch. Why don't you go and get in your car and your ex, whatever her name is, can call who she has to call. You'll get your son and we'll talk to the judge if you're unhappy with it later. There obviously were a million ways he could have handled it besides shooting him. Purely from a legal perspective, it's justified. If he was black or was wearing a BLM shirt when he was shot, then obviously this guy would have already been arrested and charged with murder because that's how our legal system works. It's run by politics, not the law, unfortunately, as we saw with Kyle Rittenhouse. But that's my view on it. If you guys disagree, you're more than welcome to tell me so in the chat, and I'll tell you why you're wrong, because you're wrong, and I'm right, because I'm always right. That's just the way it is. So those are my thoughts on this case. It was funny because after I posted my analysis of it, I just broke 18,000 followers on Twitter. I had like 18,010. And then I posted that. And like 20 minutes later, I went back to 17.9K. I lost like 30 followers. People were probably pissed because they thought that I was endorsing what he did. No, I'm not endorsing it. It wasn't a good thing to do. He killed somebody when it probably wasn't necessary, but it certainly was legal. And for people who say in that situation, we need to change the law because it shouldn't be legal, think about this. What if instead of arguing about picking up his son at 3:15, what if instead he was saying, I'm going to go in your house and beat your daughter to death. I'm going to go and kidnap your daughter in your house. Get off of me. He throws him off his porch. Now he's standing 2 feet away from the front door on the front porch, could walk right inside and harm the guy's daughter. What if that was what was being said? Imagine the video has no audio, and you see that physically happen, and then you find out the guy in the green was saying, I'm going to go in your house and do horrible, unspeakable things to your daughter. Throws the guy off and starts walking. He's standing right by his front door. Then obviously you would say he's justified in shooting, right? Because they knew each other and because of the circumstances, you figure, well, he probably could have talked him down. But the reason the law is written the way it's written is for that other example, for those other circumstances where you would say, man, I'm really happy he shot that guy. He really did the right thing by shooting him. And you can't change the law because of that one situation, obviously. So that's why it's written the way it is. We don't want to change our laws because of that one outlier. Technically, what he did was legal. Morally, I don't think he did the right thing, but that's not what I'm discussing here. I'm talking about the law. Yeah, and he took a father from these kids. It's insane. I heard the oldest kid has actually said that he's not going anywhere near his mom or her boyfriend. He wants to stay with whoever else. And I think the guy's wife, the kid's stepmom, who was there filming, I think she's actually trying to get custody. Which I can understand. I mean, it's still his mother. His mother didn't kill him. It was her boyfriend. Maybe he can't be in the picture, but I don't know. That's a tough situation. His lawyer's arguing it's justifiable homicide, which I believe it very much is, based on the law. Yeah, I think he was actually married to a judge. Let me see. What was the detail on that? So Chad Reed was the guy who was shot. Caruth was already married. Who was the judge? Wait a minute. So the new wife is Jennifer Reed. The ex-wife, who had the kid, and Kyle Caruth is her boyfriend. Kyle Caruth is the guy who shot him. They're saying that it was a conspiracy where they planned the whole thing. I don't know if I buy that argument, because he would have had to know all those things would have come out. He could walk out with the carbine, right? It's not a rifle, it's a carbine. He could have walked out, and the guy could have backed off, walked away. Like, he would have had to know he's going to run onto my property and threaten me, and he was already justified in shooting him. Then he waited until he threw him off of the porch to fulfill that subsection B of the statute when somebody forcibly removes you from your home. It makes no sense. I don't buy that it was intentional. If there's some sort of recording out there where they had planned the thing, by all means let me know, but I don't think I buy that. But yeah, it says that Carruth was actually married to a judge, which is crazy. So Chad, the guy in the green, had threatened to expose their affair, and that's why they were saying it was all planned out. But again, too many things coming together there, and that really doesn't make sense. They'd have to know he would react that way, but who knows? If there's some footage somewhere where the guy Carruth is on, saying like, all right, well, let's get your ex over here, let's get him real pissed off, I'll get my gun, and then maybe if he makes a move, all we need him to do is sort of jump on the property, and then I could shoot him. You never know. You never know. There's obviously a lot of facts we haven't heard yet, but based purely on the video, the legality of the matter, I'm very confident that there won't be an arrest, a trial, or any charges of any sort unless some information comes out that it was intentionally planned. Plus the warning shot, too. Like, he could have shot him when he fired the warning shot down at the ground, right? I guess when people do like this, people do streams and talk about topics like this, they probably, like, have certain stories planned out, like Jeremy from the Quartering or, like, Tim Pool, anybody. But I just sort of did this on the fly. First time I'm doing it, so I figured I would just see what's out there. And we'll talk about whatever. But we got time for a couple more topics. If you guys have anything you really want to ask me, just questions, drop them in the chat. I'll look at the chat in a second. But let me quickly bring you up to speed on Dominic Black, because this is also really important, especially if you found me here from watching my analysis and my work on the Rittenhouse case, then you'd be interested in this stuff. Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 sec, and then I'll explain the Dominic Black situation. Somebody asked about the Arbery case. We could briefly talk about that. I don't have much to say on it, though. Give me 1 second. I'll be right there. Sorry. I had to get a tissue because I can't freaking breathe. I had to blow my schnoz. Where is... Okay. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Like I was saying, he could have talked it out like civilized people. They could have brought the temperature down. He did not have to shoot him. But he was legally covered in doing so. That was my point. So don't unfollow me because you think I'm a monster. I mean, I am. I'm a horrible person. Don't get me wrong. I'm just kidding. But yeah, in that respect, I don't think he was in the right in doing it. Just legally covered. So, Dominic Black, if you guys haven't seen my posts about it, Andrew Branca, who's Law of Self-Defense on Twitter, he's a really good attorney who specializes in self-defense law. Essentially, he's a defense attorney that takes self-defense cases. So, I like interacting with him. I've gotten to know him from his content. I've been on a few different shows and streams, podcasts, or whatever. I've done a couple appearances with him, and he knows what he's talking about. So I'm really excited to see what he has. But he's putting together a whole article. He's doing a whole blog article entry about this case and the situation, essentially saying that I was right, because when he was on Tim Pool, him and Jack Posobiec had given me a shout out, which was awesome. Thanks again to them. And then he had mentioned right after that they went into Dominic Black, and he had mentioned how it was a different case or a different statute. So I had corrected him, but he didn't mean a fully different statute. He meant a different section of the statute with different statutory details. But in any case, he's putting together to clarify that and to help edify everybody else exactly what the statute is and how the exceptions apply. So for those who aren't aware, in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, there was an exception to the law that protected him in the case of the gun charge being under 18. And the exception had specified that you have to meet these other criteria. Long story short, if the gun isn't an SBR, a short-barreled rifle, where the barrel is less than 16 inches, or the total length, if it's not classified as a short-barreled rifle or a sawed-off or a short-barrel shotgun, then it's not actually illegal unless you're under 16. So 17 is covered. That same exception to the law, because it's the same statute, protects Kyle as it protects Dominic Black. The exact same exception applies to Dominic Black. The problem that I was talking about, which I'm not sure why his attorney has done this, I posted about it, and I noticed there were some donations to Dominic Black's fundraiser where it said, I support Dominic, please have the attorney do XYZ. They were referring specifically to my analysis because I had talked about how the attorney, the second the Rittenhouse case had that charge dismissed, should have refiled his motion to dismiss because he had done so earlier and cited that exception. I think I have that on here as well. Hold on one second. And in his motion to dismiss, it was from this past May. So being from May, he obviously didn't include the decision from within the trial. But keep in mind, Schroeder is the same judge as the Rittenhouse case, and it's prosecuted by Binger. Oh, I got to show you guys this too, my Biggie hubcap. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's pretty cool. Same judge, same prosecutor. So essentially, he could refile, right? He could refile the motion to dismiss, and instead, he could actually cite Judge Schroeder to himself and cite D.A. Binger to the judge. And it's the exact same argument, and he could essentially say, just a day ago, you made this argument. Just a day ago, the prosecutor didn't contest this argument. And just a day ago, Judge, you made this decision and dismissed the charge based on this argument. But he didn't do that right away for some reason. I don't know why, but he should have. And now it's not too late, but it definitely doesn't have the same oomph as it would have had. Because as soon as that decision happened, as soon as that charge was dismissed, he could have came right in there, walked into chambers and talked to the judge and explained, you just made this decision. We need to apply this to Dominic Black's case. We need to dismiss his charges right away. He's being charged with illegally, what's the actual name of it? Illegally selling or providing a dangerous weapon to a person under the age of 18, which results in death. Now, just if that death itself is justified or legal doesn't matter. It's similar to felony murder. In felony murder, if somebody dies during the commission of a felony, you get charged with murder. That actually just happened in the Ahmaud Arbery case. The guy who was driving and recording behind them, he was convicted of murder, and it was felony murder because he was committing a felony and he was part of the group. So during the commission of that felony that he was committing, by chasing him down with his car, using his car as a weapon to kind of block his path or chase him down, that was a felony and somebody died. It could be an accident. If you were robbing somebody, like if you were holding somebody at gunpoint, committing a felonious armed robbery, and that person for some reason killed themselves, you would be charged and convicted of felony murder because somebody died during the commission of a felony. Whether or not you directly caused the death is irrelevant. Whether or not that death was justified legally or not is irrelevant. So that part doesn't matter. You can't say because Kyle Rittenhouse was exonerated and his killing of Rosenbaum et al. Was justified under the law, that suddenly means that that he's not guilty. That wouldn't apply because under the statute, it's a death occurs, right? The legality of which is irrelevant. However, the exception is relevant. If Kyle was not illegally in possession of that rifle because he's legally allowed to possess it due to the exceptions in the law, then the same applies to Dominic Black. Giving that rifle to a person who's under 18 is similarly not a crime unless it's an SBR, a short-barreled rifle. For that reason, Dominic Black needs to have his charges immediately dismissed. The lawyer needs to resubmit his motion to dismiss, amending it with Judge Schroeder's prior decision in Wisconsin v. Rittenhouse, where he had made the same decision to dismiss that charge. Now, I also have people, and I have plenty of sources. I'm hearing from people. I have people I'm in contact from within the government in Kenosha. It's great. People are really helpful in providing information so I can make sense and share this information with you guys. That's something that also takes fostering sources. I guess that's what journalists used to do before they turned into activists. I'm essentially doing what they used to do and developing sources. And I've been in touch with a lot of people. And I know Binger actually is planning on appealing. So he's expecting Schroeder to dismiss the charges against Dominic Black, and he's planning to appeal, which means not only will he request that Dominic Black remain on bail for another year or two while this appeal plays out. That's horrible for them. It's also going to cause the Black family to spend even more money on attorneys. He's essentially going to bankrupt this family for a losing cause. He knows that the charges are going to be dismissed, but he's not dropping the charges himself. If and when those charges are dismissed by the judge, he's going to appeal a decision because they're going to have to hire an appellate attorney who specializes in the Court of Appeals. They're going to have to go and fight that appeal. And eventually, that appeal most likely will not be granted. I don't believe it will. The law is very clear. Every attorney I've spoken to on the matter has confirmed as much. The law is clear. The exception is clear. Kyle Rittenhouse is not in violation of that law. Dominic Black is not in violation of that law. But he's still going to appeal it anyway to bankrupt a family, and in the end, Dominic Black will most likely still not be charged. I don't want to give his family false hope by saying he's guaranteed to walk, but I'm very confident the charges will be dropped, and I'm very confident that the appeal will not play out for Binger, but Binger is still doing it because he wants to hurt people, because that's the type of person he is. If for some reason the appeal were to be granted, essentially what Binger would be doing is he's asking the judiciary to overrule the legislature to repair a law. He would essentially be going to the judges in the appellate court and saying, I believe the legislature meant to write it this way, and they didn't write that way. But I think that's probably what they wanted to do, so I want you to justify interpreting the law in a way that's completely contrary to the plain language in the statute. So he's requesting a judiciary remedy to a legislative problem, which is a constitutional issue in addition to all the other problems with it. So even if there was an appeal, you could then appeal that appeal based on those grounds. It could go to the Supreme Court. But I think the entire thing is probably moot. I don't think he would get the appeal granted. But if he did, he would then be able to charge, he might even be able to charge Rittenhouse again, because he would essentially be able to go back and say the decision to dismiss it based on the fact that it wasn't an SBR is irrelevant because these judges, the Court of Appeals, just said that even if it's not an SBR, it still applies. So I don't think that's going to happen, but that could be part of his game plan. Just a Hail Mary where he figures if I get this thing appealed, I get it overturned, I can then go and charge Kyle again. I don't know if that's actually how it works. I'm pretty sure it would, though. So that's what's going on with Dominic Black. So I'll continue covering the Black case. He doesn't have another court appearance until January. I think does it show his next appearance? Yeah, 1/10/2022 is his next scheduled appearance. So we'll see what happens. See what happens in January. I'll obviously keep everybody up to date. I'm going to stay on top of the Black case as well. It's very important to me. I don't want to see this poor kid get screwed over. But we need to see his attorney refile that motion. He has to file that motion. It's a necessity. Okay, what else can we cover? You got time for like one more topic, right? Let me check the comments. Let me see if anybody had anything that would be a good thing to cover real quick. Because he was keeping the guy's kids. Oh, there's John Curtis. You got to follow him too on Twitter, like I said earlier. He put out a lot of great content that helped me with my analysis a lot on Rittenhouse. So make sure you throw him a follow too. What did you say on Ricketti's stream that I had exclusive? Yeah, so I have video that would convince 7 to 80% of a jury that Kyle Rittenhouse was indeed raising the gun at Zeminski. I put out several videos about this. It was very frustrating because I was even at some point getting information directly to the defense. I know they were getting my information passed directly to them. And I think they missed a big opportunity. Now, Kyle got off, so it's over. He has double jeopardy. He cannot be tried. I can share whatever I want. I still haven't posted it. But it looks in that video, it would probably convince a majority of a jury that he's aiming the rifle. Now, that wouldn't matter. The whole time I thought, even before I was able to come up with my video, I figured there's a chance he ran around the car, dropped the fire extinguisher, quickly raised the rifle because Zeminski was standing there holding a gun in his hand, right? So he might have been worried when he came around the car, this guy's holding a loaded pistol in his hand that he's been threatening people with all night. He's been walking around with it in his hand the entire night. So initially he ran up thinking, I have to protect myself. He rose the rifle. He didn't aim it directly at him, but he rose the rifle. And then he saw as Zeminski was walking towards him, he started to back up. Rosenbaum started chasing him, and he just ran away because he obviously was trying to avoid conflict, not create it. He was only trying to protect himself. Binger tried to justify by saying his position by saying if he was raising the rifle, it was because he was protecting property because Zeminski was damaging cars, and you're not allowed to do that. But it would have been very easy to say the guy was walking towards him with a loaded pistol. So if maybe he quickly rose the rifle, but if he did, it wouldn't have been problematic. It certainly wouldn't have justified what they're claiming, which is that was provocation, which takes away Kyle's right to self-defense. Makes no sense. The guy was walking toward him with a loaded gun, and on top of that, Kyle ran away. Once you flee, even if he walked up and literally pointed a gun directly at his head and said, "Say hello to my little friend," even if that happened, as soon as he starts running away, he regains the right to self-defense because he's de-escalated and ended that confrontation by fleeing and running. As soon as he's 50 feet away and he's sprinting away, don't continue to chase him and the confrontation's over. It would have been a very easy argument for the defense to make, and they didn't. I wish they did, but it doesn't matter. Kyle's safe now, and it's all over. But yeah, no, I have video that it looks, it would definitely convince a good amount of people that he was raising the rifle, but it's not relevant. Even if he was raising it, it's not provocation, and it doesn't preclude him from claiming self-defense, so it really doesn't matter to anybody. So I don't even know if I want to post it. It's just going to make people argue about it. The problem with what happened is everybody started doing videos where they were talking about my analysis. Now, the video provided by the prosecution, I debunked it because the way it looked on their video, you couldn't convince anybody if you really looked at everything where the way their video was framed, it was just horribly done. The state didn't have a good video guy, I guess, at least not better than me and some of my friends on Twitter that are able to do a much better job than that big boy James Armstrong. Yeah, it doesn't really matter at this point. I just don't feel like listening to people bitch and fight about it because now everybody's going to say, oh, well, that means he's guilty. If he rose the rifle, he's guilty. That was it, right? And I'm like, no, that's not it. That's why I wish they just sort of squashed that whole thing and said, who cares if he did? He would have been justified even if he did do it. So, yeah, that's that. Kyle's Law. Yeah, Kyle's Law is big. I should probably do a stream dedicated just to that. So Andrew Branca had posted, I had gotten a whole hashtag trending for Kyle's Law. And part of that, Kyle's Law is a few things that are sort of like different things that I really want to see happen that are very important. And then Andrew Branca, Law of Self-Defense, he swiped my hashtag for his. Now he has something that's death. His Kyle's Law post is different. He's talking about an actual law. What I had posted, I've rebranded since then because I want to be able to push the Kyle's Law that Andrew Branca is talking about, which is a specific law. So I sort of changed my plan where I reframed it where this list is actually now Kyle's Pledge, right? And Kyle's Law is a specific law. So Kyle's Pledge, ban political prosecutions, especially in certain instances, but do something about political prosecutions where the mob demands somebody's prosecuted for something they're clearly innocent of. Empower citizens if local governments abdicate their duties. Now, the people of Kenosha had no choice. They had to rely on these people with their own personal weapons to police and protect their property from being destroyed. You're looking at a building where your life's work is in this building. It's a business you spent 20, 30 years building. And you're watching it get burnt to the ground and you can't do anything. What happens when you try to do something? You get killed or nearly killed. Look at what happened. I gave a few examples here. And I said, with Kyle's Law, this wouldn't have happened. And this is one example. 75 years old? He was in his 70s. He was the guy who worked at at a mattress store in Kenosha. And you can see there's a video of it. I don't have it here. I know Andy recently reposted it. He comes out of the mattress store with a fire extinguisher, spraying the fire extinguisher with the rioters, trying to get them to stay away so they stop burning down this building where he works. And they come up and they bash him over the face and stomp on his head and shattered his jaw. And this is a guy in his 70s who was just trying to protect his employer's business. The couple that owned this business watched their life savings and their life's work go up in smoke. I don't know how good their insurance was. I don't know if their insurance covers riots. But their life is turned upside down. And it's all because the local government abdicated their duties and didn't allow the police to help, didn't allow anybody to help. Essentially, they said the rioters have free reign. We're just going to let them destroy this town with total disregard for the tax-paying citizenry who live and pay taxes in that town. It was despicable. And that's one of the big things I want to see change with, because with Kyle's Law, this is what I said. The business owners and a 70-year-old man whose jaw was shattered would actually have power. If the local government abdicates their duties, that government takes full liability. If there's a fire, if somebody stubs their toe, I don't care what happens. That local government is going to pay for every single cent for every single thing to be replaced. If they tell the fire department and the police department not to get involved when people are running around beating people half to death, shattering their jaws, and burning down their businesses. It's total insanity. If you want to live in Mad Max, fine, we can live in Thunderdome. But if you want to do that, just understand what's going to happen. You're going to have people like me who are going to have to protect my property by any means necessary. And I'm not going to be as forgiving as Kyle, because if somebody's trying to burn down my house or my business, I'm going to respond, and they are going to be responsible for that. So that's a big part of it. Preventing local governments from abdicating their duties is a big thing. You want to empower citizens, so if that were to happen, they would have some recourse. Fix libel laws, stop the media's politically based defamation and jury pool tampering. And that's big because in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, you had everybody who was called to potentially be a juror was asked, and they had all been exposed to a lot of these lies. Oh, he crossed state lines with an automatic bazooka suitcase nuke, and he went and shot 30 black children who were just screaming for the end of racism. The most nonsensical narrative. There are people during the trial, like there were liberals who came out and said, whoa, wait a minute. Kyle Rittenhouse shot white people? I thought he shot black people who were peacefully protesting. No, there was no peaceful protest. There was nobody walking down the street with BLM signs, cheering, every city or whatever their various... That would be ironic, because that one's actually every city, every town, burn the precinct to the ground. That's one of their cheers. They weren't walking down the street with BLM chants. This was purely a riot. Joseph Rosenbaum just gotten released from a mental hospital and walked 9 miles and walked by a riot and decided to join in. There was no ongoing peaceful protest that suddenly turned into a riot. It was a riot, pure and simple. So when you have the media putting out the fake narrative, they're not just doing it for political purposes. They're tampering with the jury pool because every member of that jury had been exposed to the fake narrative. They had been told that this outsider from another state crossed state lines, came into their community with an automatic weapon and started executing minorities because he's a white supremacist. So they entered the trial, and the defense had an uphill battle where they had to convince the jury that that's not true. The burden of proof should be on the prosecution. The burden of proof is not on the defense to disprove CNN's narrative. The burden of proof is supposed to be on the prosecution to prove the defendant's guilt. And by doing what they're doing, the media is directly tampering with jury pools, and they're interfering in the judicial process, essentially trying to guarantee somebody goes to prison for their life when it's not deserved. It's despicable, and we have to do something about that. We need to adjust our libel laws to give people recourse, because as soon as the media starts to, I have a whole thread about this. As soon as the media, they have a step-by-step process. I'm going to retweet it today, so keep an eye on my Twitter, and you'll see when I retweet it. But you have, the media will put out a story and throw somebody into the limelight and come up with all these crazy narratives. And then, later on, when they're accused of defamation of character, they can say, well, they're a public person. So since they're a public person, we just posted and wrote stories about what we thought was the case. And unless you can prove specific malice, right, intent to maliciously lie, you can't sue for defamation. And that's a big problem because they decide who's a public person. Once you're in the media, you're becoming a public person whether you want to or not. And then the standard in a defamation or libel case changes. So we need to do something about that, and then we have to standardize self-defense law. And that's where I put in parentheses Kyle's law, because Andrew Branca has published his idea where if somebody is obviously killed in self-defense, then the person who killed somebody in self-defense shouldn't be going on trial for their life. And if they do, if it's extremely obvious that it was self-defense, and the jury comes back and says, not only do we acquit, but every one of us thinks that it was so obvious from the outset, based on the evidence, that it was unacceptable that this trial even occurred. It was unacceptable that we had to serve on this jury because this person was so obviously innocent based on the self-defense statute that it should have never been prosecuted. If they were to make that determination with, say 40 or 50 or 70% of the jurors say that, maybe all the jurors, I think Andrew Branca's idea was, if all of the jurors unanimously agree that over 50% of the evidence justifies that claim that it should have never happened because he obviously was innocent, then the government is responsible for reimbursing all legal fees and paying damages and things like that. And that would dissuade prosecutors and district attorneys from filing charges against somebody who's clearly innocent. In the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, perfect example. All that footage was available since day one. If you didn't listen to what the media said and you just looked at the video footage from day one, you would know that he was 100% justified in doing what he did. So that's a big part of it. Kyle's pledge is now what I call it, but that includes Kyle's law. So if you see any posts about it, make sure you retweet. The more eyes we get on it, the better. We actually had one response. Here was, where was it? I think I put it on this thread. Let me see. Oh, I think it was after. Let me see. One sec. No, where was it? On one of, I think it was the response to my original. Let me see. Kyle's law. Damn it. I'll have to find it. I'll repost it too. But he actually did implement Kyle's law. It was, I forgot where he was located, what state he's in, but a state senator responded and said that he had just put forth that law and suggested it to the legislature. So it's very possible that, was it Nebraska, maybe? Did anybody in the chat remember? Who was it? Somebody let me know in the chat. Kyle's law needs to happen. Yeah, we just talked about that. Anyway, it was Nebraska, I think, maybe. But a state legislator said that he proposed Kyle's law, and we need to get every state to do that, and we need it federally too, because this is really important stuff. Essentially, they're treating our lives like pawns in the chess game, right? These politicians are saying, forget about liberal or conservative, because it could happen to either side. You can't have politicians playing with our lives, putting us on trial for our lives when we've done something that's completely justified. We haven't broken any laws and everybody knows it. But purely because people on their side of the political aisle demand that we be punished for our wrongthink, for having the audacity to disagree with them about some contentious topics, they want to destroy our lives. Obviously, it's something mostly that happens from the left to the right, but theoretically it could happen both ways. And I don't want it to happen either way. I want people to be protected, and I don't think the government should be using us as pawns so they can destroy our lives for likes on Twitter and a couple more votes at the ballot box. It's despicable, and we need to put an end to it. Kyle's pledge and Kyle's law is how that happens. We need to put pressure on all of our representatives at the local, state, federal level and make something happen, because this case should never happen to another kid again. All right. Anybody post any more questions on this thread? I'll cover a couple more questions that people had, and then we'll go. But you guys like this? Was this good covering these topics? Because if so, I'll do this again. What are you doing in regard to Binger? Is Grosskreutz being charged? I don't think Grosskreutz isn't being charged. I don't think they officially gave him immunity for his testimony. I believe they unofficially just said we're not going to charge you, which would mean they could theoretically charge him. As far as I know, he has no deal with the prosecution. I don't remember if he was asked that on the stand. He should have been. All the lawyers dropped the ball on asking certain questions on both sides. The prosecution was really bad in some respects. Again, I'm not a lawyer. A lot of people think I am because I'm obviously very good with the legal stuff. Both my parents are litigators. My brother's a lawyer. I've done legal research for them and paralegal work for my parents and stuff. So I'm familiar with the stuff. I've read a lot too. But I'm not actually a lawyer. I just happen to sound like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to legal topics. But that said, I do know as a function of courtroom procedure and legal strategy what is the right question to ask or not, right? And there were certain instances where they just dropped the ball. Like, how did you not ask a certain question? For instance, I was talking before. Maybe Kyle did raise the rifle when he was accused of doing so, but that doesn't matter because he was justified in doing so, and it didn't change anything because he ran away, and even if he did do it, it wouldn't make a difference, right? But Binger never said to him when he was on the stand, did you raise the rifle at Joshua Zeminski? He said, you don't have a memory of raising a rifle at Joshua Zeminski, and Kyle said no. If you say, I don't remember doing it, you're not saying I didn't do it. You're just saying, I don't remember it. Maybe I could have, but I don't remember it, right? So he asked him, you don't remember doing it. And then at the other point, he showed him the video and said, what does it look like on this video? Does that look like, do you see yourself right there raising the rifle? And Kyle said, it looks like I'm standing there with the rifle pointed down at this point in the video. So he never said the words, I didn't do it. So at the closing, when the jury was deliberating and they wanted to watch the video, the prosecution made the argument to Judge Schroeder that we need to allow the jury to watch the video as much as they want, zoomed in, because we're impeaching the defendant's testimony because the defendant claimed that he never did it, and we're using this video to show that he lied, and he indeed did. But that's not true. The client never even claimed on the stand that he didn't do it. I notified the defense of that. It ended up being a moot point, but they were aware of that. They were researching the testimony themselves to make sure he never said that, because that would have prevented them from shoving the jury's face in it for another 5 hours. So in the case of Grosskreutz, back to that, I don't think he had a deal. So they could theoretically charge him, but they won't because he's on the right side, right? He's on their political side, and that's just how it goes. They put a kid on trial for his life when the kid broke no laws, and let this kid go when he The funny thing is, Grosskreutz did exactly what Kyle was originally accused of doing. They said Kyle came from out of town with this illegal weapon and blah, 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 blah. Well, Grosskreutz came from out of town with an illegal weapon that he's not legally allowed to have. He had an illegally concealed handgun. Kyle was open carrying a rifle that he's legally permitted to have at the age of 17 because it's not a short-barreled rifle. Gage Grosskreutz had an illegal concealed firearm. He did not have a valid license for a concealed carry. Yet they're not charging him. It makes no sense. It's obviously political. I don't expect them to file any charges against him unless somebody else comes into office. The statute of limitations is such that they could probably charge him later on. It's a felony, so we'll see. Maybe they'll put a Republican in office. But the other question was, what am I doing in Binger? So yeah, with Binger, I have some sources that are getting me information that I'm able to post. I've shared several things, several more examples I've come across where he lied, misled the court, several things he did that are clear ethics violations. I have sources that have sent me one of several formal complaints that have gone to the regulatory board that regulates lawyers in the state of Wisconsin, as well as the State Bar Association. So I've posted that stuff, and there's more content I'm going to be getting and putting up too. So I'm not done with Binger. I want to put the pressure on him, and I want him to pay for what he's done. I'm hoping that my actions and spreading the word, getting other people to file complaints, can all work to get him either disbarred. At the very least, he needs to be censured for what he's done. All right, last couple questions. Were there any more on the thread? Oh, here's Andrew right here. Law of self-defense. Catching up on errands and such after 6 weeks and 16-hour days of the trial. Yeah, tell me about it. Coverage and analysis. But I'll take a look before the weekend is out. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I did the same thing. I was spending 16, 18, 20 hours a day in some cases going over the case and putting together content and working with sources. Again, that's why I said I spent so much time dedicated to that. I neglected all my other normal sources of income, my businesses. And that's why I've been asking for people to throw me some support. If you look in the description of this video or my pinned tweet on Twitter, I list Zelle and PayPal and Venmo and crypto addresses and all that stuff. Even if you could donate $5, like every little bit helps. If you're able to contribute, I would really appreciate it. I've been struggling by focusing all my time on this. I don't have the luxury of stopping work to focus on this the entire time. All right. That's that. Were there any other questions in the chat? Anybody have one or two questions before we end the stream? Yeah, so I'm going to do the stream again. I think this was good covering this stuff. Hopefully you guys like my input on it. So for those who don't know my background, I'm a technology consultant. I'm an IT guy. So I do IT consulting and networking, things like that. But as far as what I'm good at, I'm knowledgeable, experienced, and knowledgeable about a lot of different topics, which gives me helpful insight. So when it comes to legal matters, obviously, I have a lot of great input to contribute there. Technology is my specialty. In crypto, I know a lot about that. Politics, a lot of the topics you'll hear about in political situations, I'm quite familiar with as well. So I'm one of those jack of all trades where I don't have a law degree, but I happen to be, as an amateur, quite well versed in legal matters. And that applies to a bunch of different topics. So I think doing this sort of thing, we're covering cultural events, news, and legal topics, things like this. I really like doing it. I want to keep doing it. So if people are able to contribute so I can have some sort of income from doing it, I don't have huge streams where I get super chats like, the guys we were all watching during the Rittenhouse case. I don't have that, unfortunately. So either I have to spend my time trading crypto and teaching traders and stuff, because I teach people how to trade and do analysis of crypto too. I either have to focus on that or focus on my IT business, or I can do this stuff. So hopefully I can spend time doing this stuff moving forward. And if you guys throw me likes and comments and all that good stuff, that would obviously help me build my profile and keep doing it. All right, what questions were there? Oh, by the way, somebody mentioned in the chat, so that was Oklahoma, where the state legislator has already proposed a Kyle's Law. Bitcoin gonna bounce? Yes. Bitcoin's not done going down. Why don't I do that? Before I go, let me quickly explain what I'm expecting out of Bitcoin. I'm going to be doing a detailed analysis because I have a crypto trading group. If any of you guys are crypto traders or like to or want to learn more about it, you could join my group. I have a paid group where I teach people how to trade, and I share all of my trades and all of my analyses. Like right now, for instance, I got into a couple trades. I bought some cryptocurrencies yesterday, and I've lost money on all of those, which sucks because this correction today was bigger than I had expected. But only on some of them did I lose money because I teach people how to manage risk. And when you're managing risk, let me show you. If the price dumps down, right, I might only take a very, very small loss because I use stop limit orders. So I take a tiny loss when the price dumps, and I make a lot of money when the price goes up. So just to show you, like, this is my key trade, right? I shared this trade where I got in. This is the entry of the trade. It ran up for 40%, right? So that's a massive profit, big pump. Then it came back down close to my original entry. So if you know how to manage risk and you know how to take profit and things like that, if you get a big breakout, it doesn't matter if there's a big correction because you're making money on that big run up. But I've had a lot of these. LRC, one of my bigger trades. So I got into this LRC trade. It broke out for 220%. And that was in the course of like a few days. It did a 220% run, and then it came back down, and then I had bought back in. So when I tell people in my trading group if I'm getting into a trade, they sometimes follow along, but I teach people how to manage risk and how to decide whether or not it's the right time to trade for you, because everybody's different. And that's something I would encourage everybody to do. If you're looking to get into trading cryptos and stuff, don't just blindly buy. Like if I post on Twitter, hey, I really like this SRM trade right here. I'm buying right around here because I expect it to go up a lot. Don't just buy it because I say I am. That's a horrible idea. That's why I hate signals groups where you just people say buy this or buy that. That's a terrible idea. It's very, very risky. Instead, learn how to trade and learn how to understand your own risk tolerance. So if somebody's getting into a trade, or if somebody like me who's an analyst, I do this for a living. So I can tell you there's a really strong horizontal support right here on CHZ, the CHZ cryptocurrency right here. So all these candles bouncing right at this level tells me it's a very, very strong horizontal support. There's a high probability that this support will hold because look at all these candles. Boom, 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 right? Every time it dumps down to this horizontal line, it bounces back up. So right now, if you look at the current price, it's 6-7% above that line. But if it were to dip back down, so it was really close, it was only like 1% above this blue line, I could buy right there, and I'd have a pretty high level of confidence that if it hits that blue line, it's going to bounce back up again. And I could even put a safety order, a stop limit order, like 3% below my entry price. So if the price were to fall below that line, I would have an order there that would automatically sell it, so I only lose 3% when the price dumps. So if it were to take a huge spill and drop 20%, I don't lose a lot of money on it. But if I get the big bounces, like here, I bought right here and it broke up for 25%. I bought again right here and it ran up for 25%. So you can see I make a lot of money from these trades when we get these big breakouts, but you don't want to just blindly follow somebody like me unless you know about these other things, unless you know how to manage your risk and use a stop loss order, stuff like that. That's why I focus on teaching in my crypto group. I have like hundreds of hours at this point of old videos and live streams where I talk about all those topics. But this is going to be complicated for a lot of you to understand if you're not into crypto already, so I'm not going to dive into this stuff anymore. I just wanted to quickly show you. Like I had expected a bounce here. We got this bounce on Bitcoin, and then it dumped today. I didn't expect this big of a dump. I thought it would come back down, and at the very least, it would hold right here at this 0.5 level. That's 55K. That's the Fibonacci retracement. I expected to hold right at that level and went down further, but right now I'm expecting a bounce. So one of the models I teach is with the stochastic oscillator. If you configure it the correct way, when you get down to these lower levels, you're going to get a bounce. So right now I'm expecting a bounce, an imminent bounce. I think we're going to see a nice recovery bounce over the next 24 hours. So you can see every time it gets down to these lower levels like this, like right here, see, nice bounce. When it got down to this level right here, look all the way on the bottom of the screen what I'm showing you, and then up here, nice big bounce. And then before that, when it gets down to this level here, small bounce, but it still bounces, right? So in order to tell if it's going to be a bigger one or a smaller one, there are a lot of other things to look at. But just to be able to anticipate an approximate trend reversal, I can tell you with a very high level of confidence that this correction, this dump right here, is either over or extraordinarily close to being over, and we're going to get a nice little bounce back up. I'm going to do an update for my crypto group, and I'll actually share that publicly. I'll post it publicly on my YouTube channel, and I'll post it to Twitter too, so you guys can take a look if you're interested. But I'm essentially going to come up with a model for the timing on this. If you go horizontally all the way over here, you'll see back here, this particular level where we bottomed out happened to be a really strong support before. That's another reason why I'm quite confident that we're going to get this bounce here. So I'll share that publicly if you guys are looking for some more info on crypto. But yeah, you can follow me for any reason. Crypto, politics and culture stuff. I like talking about all this stuff, and I think I'm going to do this again. So thanks for coming. How long did we run? It was over an hour. Well, time flies when you're having fun. We didn't really talk about COVID stuff. That's a topic I'd love to talk to you guys about. So next time we'll do that. But thanks for coming. I don't have a whole sign off and a tagline because this is my first time doing this. But make sure you follow me and all the people I recommended, right? And I will post when I'm ready to do this again. Do me a favor though. If you have any topics you really like for me to talk about in something like this, let me know ahead of time. Like, I'm going to post this and say, hey guys, you can watch this live stream I did if you missed it. You can respond to that, for instance, and say, hey, next stream, talk about XYZ. And if I see those posts on Twitter, I'll make a note of it. And then in the next day or two, when I do a stream like this, I'll be able to cover whatever topics you guys want. So make sure to let me know ahead of time if there's something you want me to go over. Any questions before I let you guys go? I'm not talking about crypto. That's enough about Ethereum, and we'll talk about that later. Binger said he would appeal if tried for dismissal from Rybread82. Rybread, if you came late to the stream when I talked about the Dominic Black case, I discussed that in a lot of detail. So go back and watch that portion of the stream. I dove into that in a ton of detail about the potential appeal and the reasons for it and what would happen and all that stuff. And again, last shill, if you guys are able, even if it's just a few bucks, look in the description of the video. All my info's there. If you can throw me some support, I really would appreciate it. I want to continue doing this stuff. I really like doing this, but I'm not going to be able to if I can't afford to spend the time on it. But also, if you guys are into crypto and you wanted to join my crypto group, just like I just explained what I showed you on the charts, I teach that stuff where I show the charts and I explain everything. How do we know it's going to bounce here? Why? What are the probabilities? What do I think is going to make a big move, a small move, when, all that stuff. I break that down in videos and I share all of my trades and I teach people how to trade. So if you think you would be into that, the information, if you wanted to join my crypto trading group, there's a Discord link in the description of this live stream as well. That'll take you to the group in Discord, and the welcome page explains how to join and costs, and the cheapest option is $50 a month. But that doesn't get you the best content. You don't have access to me for $130 a month. The premium membership, it's cheaper if you do multiple months, but for the premium group, you have direct access to me where we do live streams, one-on-one phone calls with me. Members of my group aren't happy because the last 2 weeks with the trial, I haven't really been that attentive. So I'm going to get back to my premium members and do some one-on-one phone calls with them because I have some free time now. And if you guys do want to join, click the link in the description. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.